Strange twists and turns in the Mississippi Republican primary. Our political strategist Angela Reid, former South Carolina Republican Party Chair Caton Dawson, and Bob Herbert, a distinguished senior fellow at Demos. And I'm going to go right to you, Caton, to talk about this strategy that Thad Cochran has. I think we have a newspaper ad that we can show you that's showing the strategy that he's trying to use, which is to try and court black voters. He's got the help of a guy named James Scooby-Doo Warren, a black Democratic strategist and GOTV expert who's trying to help him go into black newspapers, black churches, to get black folk to come out, because apparently there aren't enough white Republicans to get him reelected. What is that strategy about?
Well, first of all, Joy, I've never seen it work. It's been tried time and time again to get Democrats to come into Republican primaries and vice versa, and the cross-pollination just sort of never happens. You know, right now I've watched the race fairly closely. You've got two different demographics going. I think certainly the super PAC on the side of Thad Cochran, run by Henry Barber, which is a really, really good operative in our business, you know, came off the air and went into the get out the vote. I think there are plenty of Republicans in Mississippi to vote. The problem we have in primaries is people just don't show back up. So it's a tight race, but I think the theory there is a little overblown. I don't think it'll work, and if that's what they're counting on, then the new senator is going to be Chris McDaniels. Well,
let's listen to one of the ads that Chris McDaniels is actually using to push back on this strategy, Angela. This is the ad that's being run now on the McDaniel side, one of them pushing back on this strategy to get black Democrats to come into the primary and vote for Thad Cochran.
Thad Cochran is basically saying, look what I've all the black community here. I've given you some food stamps. Be happy and vote for me because I've given you something to vote for me for.
So, Angela, you have a state that is #1 in the states that use the most federal assistance in order to get by. Their budget in Mississippi is 45.8% made up of federal dollars. Thad Cochran is essentially running on that. He's running on the fact that he's brought home those dollars that you see right there to Mississippi. And now you have Chris McDaniel really using that against him and using a black person to do it. What do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely not a new strategy. There's nothing new under the sun, so to speak, Joy. I think the larger problem is this. Mississippi has the largest black electorate if you look at the exit polls from 2012. And the fact that any candidate waited to engage the black demographic of Mississippi or anywhere else in this country until it was time for a runoff is highly problematic. The other challenge with that particular strategy, Joy, is this. The folks who are most likely to be engaged in any type of electoral politics, if they're black and Democrat, they already voted in the original primary for the Democrats. So they're not eligible to vote in the GOP runoff today. So that's the real issue here. I think, moreover, is it true that Thad Cochran has done more than some of the other conservative senators from other states? Absolutely. He's absolutely worked with HBCUs in the state of Mississippi. I know my former boss, Congressman Thompson, would say that he also was very helpful in ensuring Katrina funding. But the bigger issue here is the fact that the GOP overall has not learned its lesson from its autopsy report last year, and they're still doing the same old things, expecting vastly different results.
And, you know, Bob, Jamel Bowie has an interesting piece up in Slate right now, arguing that African Americans actually should go ahead and vote. As Angela made the point, you have to have not voted in the Democratic primary, which actually had very low turnout. So there are available black voters. And what he essentially Thad Cochran isn't an ideologue, and during his 6 terms, he's funneled tens of billions of dollars in earmarks and funds to Mississippi, propping up the state's economy, creating jobs for thousands of constituents. And he also makes the point that things like health centers, historically black colleges, and infrastructure directly and indirectly boosted black communities. And so for that reason, to stave off a Chris McDaniel, who said he wasn't even sure he'd take Katrina funding, he wasn't sure that was a good idea, that African Americans should get involved. What do you think of that?
That's not what I would do. I mean, you know, when some folks are, you take the history of Mississippi, when some folks are so egregious that you have someone who's not quite as egregious, and you say, you know what, I need to throw that vote so we don't just go back into the fire again. It's not my idea of the way to go forward politically. If you want to rally black voters to vote, and I am certainly in favor of that, find candidates to get behind, defeat Thad Cochran, defeat the Republicans in Mississippi. That's what I'd encourage people to do.
Yeah, and Kate, the other thing I think that's really troubling, in their columns written, Jonathan Capart's written a great one people should check out in the Washington Post. this idea that, first of all, it's going to be real easy to spot the Democrats that are crossing over in that poll because they're going to be the black people, right? Mississippi literally is mirror images. 96% of African Americans voted for Romney, for Barack Obama, both 08 and 12. Among white voters, it was 88% and 89% voting for the Republicans. They're mirror images of each other. It's not going to be hard to figure out who the poll watchers should target. But what do you, as a Republican, make of this idea of utilizing poll watchers, essentially intimidation that is by default going to target black people at the polls in a southern state like Mississippi that's still flying the Confederate battle flag?
Again, Joy, I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's a lot of rhetoric behind it. Cuccinelli lost in Virginia, and at the end of the day, you got a base vote coming out of probably less than 12% of the total population is going to come vote in this primary. I would contend against my other guests that the winner of this probably going to be the next U.S. Senator from Mississippi. But this is a get-out-the-vote exercise, and you've got a tremendous amount of money that's been spent in Mississippi on both sides of the aisle here. You've got the Senate Conservative Fund on one, you've got the Club for Growth on the other, you've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So you've got money that's poured in by the millions to affect this seat. At the end of the day, it's going to be a base Republican vote. About 12% of the people are going to vote. It's going to be a small number of people, probably 150,000 folks, and that's going to name the next senator of Mississippi.
All right,
all the rest of it has kind of been news.
Okay, well, hold on just a second. I want to keep the whole panel here. Angela, Caton, and Bob are going to stick with us, and when we come back, hip-hop, you don't stop. Charlie Rangel's bid for a 23rd term in Congress. That's coming up.